I used to think stories like this were just tales to scare kids. You know, the kind of thing grandmas tell you so you don't wander too far or stay out late. But after what happened that summer, I don't laugh at those stories anymore. I don't even talk about them unless someone forces me to. It happened when I was staying in a small village in Ghana with my cousin Kofi. My parents had sent me there for the summer to help on my uncle's farm and learn some discipline, as my dad put it. Kofi and I were both 16, but he was more daring than me. He always wanted to go where he wasn't supposed to, do things he wasn't allowed to. One evening, after a long day on the farm, Kofi suggested we take a shortcut home through the forest. The main path was long and winding, but it was safe and familiar. The shortcut, though, cut right through the heart of the forest, past areas people didn't usually go. "Are you scared?" he teased when I hesitated. "I'm not scared," I lied. I didn't want to look weak, so I followed him. At first, it was fine. The forest was dense, but we could still see the fading light of the sun through the trees. The air smelled of damp earth and leaves, and the sound of crickets and distant birds filled the silence. But the deeper we went, the quieter it got. No birds. No crickets. Just the crunch of leaves under our feet. The air felt heavier, like it was pressing down on us. I started to feel like we were being washed. "Kofi," I said, "this doesn't feel right. Let's go back." He laughed. "You're always so scared, Kwame. Nothing's out here. Stop acting like a child." I didn't argue. I didn't want to be alone in that place. A few minutes later, we saw her. She was sitting by a tree, her back to us. A young woman, maybe in her 20s, with long black hair that fell over her shoulders. She wore a simple cloth wrap, like something from a different time, and her skin was dark and smooth. Kofi called out to her. "Sister, are you okay?" She didn't respond. She didn't even move. She just sat there, her head tilted slightly, like she was listening to something. Kofi took a step closer. "Sister, do you need help?" Still nothing. Something about her wasn't right. She was too still. Not like a person resting, but like a statue, frozen and lifeless. "Kofi," I whispered, "let's go. She's not normal." But Kofi was stubborn. He stepped closer, bent down a little, trying to see her face. That's when she turned. Her head moved slowly, unnaturally, like a puppet on strings. And her face wasn't human. Her eyes were slits, like a snake's, glowing faintly in the dim light. Her mouth was too wide, stretching in a way that wasn't possible, filled with sharp, uneven teeth. She flicked out her tongue, long and forked like a serpent's, and hissed. It wasn't just a sound. It was a vibration, a pressure that made my chest feel tight, like the air was being pulled out of me. I froze. I couldn't move. My legs felt like they were stuck in the earth. Kofi screamed and stumbled back, falling onto the ground. That's when I saw it, the lower half of her body wasn't human. It was a snake's tail, thick and scaled, coiled beneath her. She rose up, towering over us, her hiss growing louder, sharper. Kofi scrambled to his feet and ran. I wanted to follow, but I couldn't move. My body wouldn't listen. All I could do was watch as she slithered toward me, her glowing eyes locked onto mine. I thought I was going to die. But then she stopped. She tilted her head again, like she was listening to something far away. For a moment, everything was silent. Then she hissed once more, a low, almost disappointed sound, and turned. She slithered back into the trees, disappearing as quickly as she'd appeared. It felt like hours before I could move again. My legs were shaking so badly I almost fell when I tried to stand somehow. I made it back to the village. When I got there, Kofi was already home, sitting on the steps of my uncle's house. He looked pale, his hands trembling. He didn't say anything when I arrived, and I didn't ask. We didn't tell anyone at first, but my aunt noticed something was wrong. She kept asking what had happened until Kofi finally blurted it out. "We saw her. The snake girl." My aunt's face went pale. She called for my uncle, and they sat us down. "She's real," my aunt said quietly. "We've heard the stories, but no one in the village has seen her in years. They say she guards something deep in the forest, something ancient. If she spared you, it means she didn't see you as a threat. But don't go back there. Ever." My uncle nodded. "You're lucky to be alive. Most people who see her never come back. I haven't been back to that forest since. Even now, I can still hear her hiss in my dreams, see those glowing eyes staring at me. And Kofi. He doesn't talk about it. He doesn't take shortcuts anymore either."